Då vi återgår.
Hello, everybody. Are we on? Yes. We are live and we are welcoming our panelists into this web meeting. All participants out there somewhere in Europe or elsewhere, welcome to this web conference. And this panel discussion in BSR Electric Final Conference. The weather is absolutely marvelous. The nights are light, they are bright. It's midsummer in Sweden and midsummer at its best. So I'm truly sorry that we can't meet here in forward to show our beautiful city to you a week like this one. But we all know the circumstances, and I'm actually extremely proud and happy that the team could change this mutual COVID problem into a possibility for us all. So I have Andreas and Isabel in this room, and we have teams in Hamburg. You found a web conference solution together with people you never met before, and you did that in an extremely short period of time. And here comes the microphone as well. You did it in an extremely short period of time. The learning curve has been dramatic. That is very, very well done. It shows that we can change behavior when we have to, and we do collaborate with each other when it's necessary. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind when it comes to electrification of the transport system as well. So I will welcome you to the first panel discussion. And it's about procurement of electric buses in Oslo, Copenhagen, and Hamburg. And I think that shifting from fossil-driven powertrains to electric vehicles, it seems so easy. It's something everybody wants. It's something everybody expects to happen now. It's energy efficient, it's more climate friendly, it's silent, and it's clean. And when the BSR Electric project started, you told me that the shift was something that you expected to happen very soon, actually during the project period. But it still really hasn't happened at a great scale in Europe. It takes time. And from what I've learned in Gothenburg, it takes time because this is truly complicated. It's complicated and it's complex. And it's complicated because it's not only a technical shift in powertrains from combustion to electric, it's a complete socio-technology regime shift. And in this panel and in the next panel this afternoon, we will talk about this shift a little bit. It's not change. It's not a change in powertrains. It's a thoroughly transition. It means new actors, new legislation, new business models, new skills. And I think Oslo, Hamburg, Gothenburg are really, really breaking new ground here when it comes to electric buses. And we are a lot of people that are really, really thankful for your hard efforts. And therefore, I want each and every one of you to listen very carefully to what the panelists will tell us today, because they might have the golden keys to success. And panelists, please share your frustration, your failures, your knowledge with us. Because when you do, we can learn and we can upscale. And we need this for the global climate crisis, this transition. So before we start the questioning and the real discussion, so could you please, panelists, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in implementing of electric buses in your region. And Nina, can we try to start with you? We had some technical issues, but I hope it will be fine. Nina, it's good.
I am Nina. I work for the Verkehrsbetriebe Hamburg and Holstein, and this also indicates that we're not only servicing Hamburg as a city, we are also servicing the surrounding municipality area in the state of Holstein, Schleswig-Holstein. I've for electromobility there.
Thank you, Nina. Roger.
Yes, Malin.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Roger Vanberg, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Västtrafik. I'm responsible for all our operations, as well as traffic and the infrastructure development. And that includes the procurement of our traffic. And Västtrafik is the public transport authority of West Sweden. We are responsible for all public transport in the area, including, of course, Gothenburg, which is a big city in our area. And we have trams, ferries, buses, and trains. And also important to know when we're discussing later on the electrical, we tender all our operations. So everything is, but we can get back to that. So I'm very happy to be here. And thank you.
We're happy you could join, Roger. I think it's a serious time for public transport companies these days. Marius, welcome. Who are you?
Thank you, Malin. Yes, I'm Marius Jursit. I'm technical manager in Zero. Zero is a Norwegian-based environmental organization, and we are working, as our name is saying, for zero-emission solutions. And I've been working a lot with electrification of the transport sector with the electrical buses, towards working a lot with Ruter in Oslo and the whole value chain from the bus suppliers to the bus operators and the PTA and the politicians, which is an important part of the electrification. In addition to the buses, I've been working a lot with the electrification of the ferries in Norway, and the maritime sector.
Okay, well, very happy to have you here. And there are possibilities for people joining the chat to write on questions in the question field. And if we're not able to pull all the questions during this debate, we will make sure that you will find answer later on, like we did yesterday with the Q&A. So if we start the discussion, I think the first city I heard about was Hamburg, and you pull up extremely inspiring goals from 2020 to only procure emission-free buses. And for those who haven't listened to your keynote, Nina, I really recommend you to do, because it gave loads of inspiration and information. But could you please give us a short summary of your way towards this goal?
Thank you, Malin. Yes, we started at the VRH very early on. We actually procured a little midi bus for a special route in the west that goes around in a circular fashion in 2014 already. We decided on this particular route because it has a few challenges. It has the steepest incline in Hamburg. We actually have a little bit of a hill there with a 16% incline, which is massive for Hamburg, which is largely northern and flat otherwise. And also because it's in a ring route, we felt assured that we could install the charging point at the central station where the tram meets the bus line, and the drivers get a bit of a pause as well, that we could go for recharging at that point. But largely the system is that we plug in the bus at the depot overnight. It comes into service fully charged, and then it goes for a few rounds along the line. And when the bus driver has a bit of a break, they can top up a little bit. So we decided to try this very special line and had really good experiences there. And with that start, the city of Hamburg in 2015 deciding to announce the 2020 zero emission only procurement. We set out and bought first another midi bus because it was running so well, and the passengers and the bus drivers appreciated. And we did a lot of it in building a line with 2 pantographic charging buses, articulated buses. That was not so successful for us. The technology wasn't there to actually make the success of that one. So in 2016, when I joined the Power, we ran a strategic project, also looking at where would we have to position pantographs for recharging our buses on our lines. We are a very large company. We're on 667 buses and have 160 lines to actually service. So that would have been prohibitively expensive, and also would have had to change the way you can access the pantographs in the city. We have to change how we drive towards them because the streets weren't set up for it, and it would be in the public space, which is always difficult to actually implement something. So we decided that the Rampini charging way of just plugging something into the bus overnight was actually the better way for us to go. And then tendered twice in 2018, or in 2017 and 2018, with the first tender failing because we could not get the kind of range that we wanted, or the company that we then actually, was only one company left who could tender buses with the range that we'd elected, but they failed to deliver. And so the order was returned later on. And in 2019, we finally successfully procured buses, unfortunately with a bit of a reduced range. But we're trying them out. We've been driving them for almost 6 months now, and we're very happy with those experiences that we're making currently. But we do think that there's headroom in the industry to extend the range of the buses for the type of service that we're providing to work fully with electric buses.
So it's really hard to be an early adopter, isn't it?
It's very hard. We struggled a lot because the first bus we procured actually does not have the same charging system. It's still a plug-in bus, but it works on a different protocol technically. And we will have to make a decision at some point whether we actually want to change that if they want to be compatible with all our other depots, because we have 12 depots, and if we shift buses around from one to the other, they have to be compatible. But the early systems did not have any standards. There's a standard that is particular to the manufacturer and not to anything else.
But I'm curious about the political leadership and also the leadership in your organization. You said it kind of failed in the beginning, but they still wanted to continue. They didn't change the targets, or?
Not so. I think we had good political backing, because it's always when you fail at something and your procurement does not work out, that could make politics lose interest in the technology and in what they're pursuing. But that was not at all the case. We all stuck to our guns and we just kept trying. We also joined an initiative to exert more power on the industry to develop the buses that we actually needed. And that seemed to, well, I think it's sort of a combination of showing that there's actually needs for hundreds and hundreds of buses. This is both our company, the Hochbahn, who's also in Hamburg, servicing the city centre, and the Berlin Bus Company, which is actually the largest public transport provider in Germany. And the number of vehicles that we knew we were going to want to procure over the next years seemed to, as well, along with the time, help the bus manufacturers actually develop better products, or products that we actually wanted to buy.
So turning to the region that I come from, the west part of Sweden, Roger, will you tell us something about your procurement and the way towards it?
Well, I can start with that has been for a long time very political, clear goals and tough goals for increasing the emissions, get more environmental friendly service. For example, in Sweden, we have a goal of reducing the carbon dioxide by 70% to 2030. We have already reached that goal. So our goal is 90%. And we very early saw that electric would be part of a solution. We started already 2011 with a small project with 2 plug-in hybrids and 2 charging stations in the end of that line. And together with the city of Gothenburg, Volvo, and the region and others, we created 2014 something called Electricity. It's a project where we develop and demonstrate and test new solutions. And the year after, we introduced one line, Route 55, that was electric. Some of the buses were fully electric and some of the buses were hybrids. And we did it on one line that connected to university campus, and we had them with us in the project as well. And that was very useful to get knowledge of the operation. We saw how positive it was. I don't know if it was unexpected, but unexpected so high customer satisfaction. We have 100% very often in the service, which we never have in city traffic, and the drivers are very, very positive. So that was a very important part of taking the next step, and the next step was to introduce electric buses in contract that we already had, a contract that were suitable. So we introduced last year in 4 different contracts in 4 different cities. In Gothenburg, one where we have a line with 30 electric buses, the whole line, and the other 3 cities with 30, so total 60 buses. That's also very important to learn, and that's different sizes of buses, so from articulated buses to 12-meter buses. And then we procured and took the next step. We decided that. And there was also a very political goal that we should reach not only reducing carbon dioxide, but energy consumption. And the only way to reach that is to electrify on a large scale. Mm. So we have decided to electrify all city traffic in the next 7 years. Well, the goal is to 2030, but it will be in fact to 2027. And we did a large procurement last year and procured then about 160 all articulated buses for the operation in part of Gothenburg and the 2 closest cities here. So and they will be in operation this December. So December we will have on a large scale. So we've gone from small testing to a larger test and then in full operation.
It's really, really impressive. And you've also been on the question for about 10 years now.
Yep.
Yeah, takes time.
Takes time.
Marius, yeah, it takes. Marius, could you please tell us about the Oslo case? Sorry.
Yes, I can. And actually, I need to thank Gothenburg for the help since you was started so early, and the work you did some years ago for the first test and electric city was really important learning for Oslo. So and we got help from you to have a electrical bus from Volvo. We brought it up to Oslo and had a seminar and showed to the politicians and the bus operators and the Ruter, a nice silent electrical bus from Sweden. Back it was in 2016, in the previous Interreg period, just before this one. This was important learning and showing what you did in Gothenburg, and showing how nice and silent and zero emission this buses was really important help for what we have achieved in Oslo. During this Interreg period, we have gone the same from like small testing in Oslo, 6 electrical buses back in started in end of 2017. That was a really important learning for the bus operators. It was a test which they procured the buses and decided the solutions for charging, so that they had. So most important learning from that part was for the bus operators to actually procure, get in contact with and learn about different kinds of charging solutions, and decide and to implement the solutions. But we have also learned both from that first test and also other parts in Norway and internationally, that actually if you do a small test with just 1 or 2 buses, it's you get more problems than if you do it in large scale, because then you just have, it's so special and it's not part of the ordinary operation. It is a special project, and then when you just have 1 or 2 buses from one operator, not from a bus supplier, and you don't have then also the service from the bus suppliers, it's harder than when you get a large test. As you see in the picture now, this is a part of the large deployment. Last year, 1 year ago, started 70 new electrical buses in Oslo. So in many different lines, and then together with the first tender, which got like 40 electrical buses, we got approximately 10% of the buses in Oslo region was an electric in August last year. We had a large conference then to celebrate the large milestone with 10% of the buses electric, zero emission, and the large breakthrough for electrical buses in Oslo and in Norway, and also in the Nordic countries, like during 2019, both for actually buses in the city, and also for large-scale tenders and for zero emission buses. So it is really, I think, in the main and the overall, it has been a really success story. We will go more into the perhaps details about what we can learn for failure and so on. But in the main, my main message is and learning from this is the transition has really go fast. It has been some challenges, but compared to what we need to do to solve the climate change challenge and the large transformation, I think the transformation to electrical buses and zero emission buses is a success story, which other part of the transportation can learn from, and how we actually can do a large, fast transition by using tenders and public procurements and demand in the market, and the suppliers is responding. Last year, my last point in the beginning now, the Ruter PTA in Oslo, they wanted to have an electric regional bus, not just a city bus, but also bus, and it's not available now, but we want to buy it. And they were really clear during the whole tender process. We really want it, and we will give good incentives to the companies which can bring it to the market. And it was a success. So by the end of the tender, it was at least 3 bus suppliers which then had made new models for electrical regional buses, and we will get the first in operation in the Oslo region now after the summer.
But the saying "think big, start small" maybe doesn't really apply then. Think big, start big.
Yeah.
Is perhaps a good lesson learned. Thank you, Marius. Coming back to you, Nina. I am a bit curious. Well, it's a question to all 3 of you, but we start with you, Nina. When were you? There were so many technology options in the beginning. So when were you certain this is the charging infrastructure solution that we go for, or this is the kind of electric bus we want to have? What drove you to that decision? And my second question then is, in your brilliant speech, which we can find on the webpage, you also said that this forced you to become a more digitalized company, which was something that you perhaps didn't expect from the beginning. So I'm a bit curious about that as well. But we start with the charging, and when did you decide on the technology, and how could you decide on the technology?
I think we decided on the technology within the strategic project that we ran in 2016, and that was very important for us because we're such a large company. When you look at how much energy a bus needs for charging, and you look at the size of your depots, you will have to think about the amount of energy you will be needing in one depot when it's fully electric. And that becomes quite large numbers. They're a little bit frightening at first. And so you then need to look at this closer and how you can manage your energy demands, and also how you will upscale and implement all these changes across the company, across the various depots. It will also involve a lot of money that you will need to get this done, actually. Luckily, we're experiencing good grants from the government at the moment to manage these challenges. But we started looking at going into larger numbers of vehicles, and I would slightly disagree with that going large straight away is the easier option. When you just buy 1 or 2 buses, you generally manage on how does it work within your services, and you do treat it a little bit like a special bus. I agree with Marius in that regard, that it's a special little pet, and you can afford little extra attention at it, but that doesn't then help you so much into changing into the large scale. And looking at the changes you need to make for the large scale, we realized that we needed a plug-in system because we have a special setup. We do not service the city centre, so this is very different, I think, from Roger Vanberg's setup. When you are in the city centre and you come across the same line in a very short period of time again and again, having the infrastructure in place for pantographic charging is a very good solution. We service all the municipal outside lines, so our area is extremely big, and we have a lot of lines there where we only come across maybe once an hour or maybe twice an hour. So you don't actually see the use in the charging system at that point. We also have 60 nationalities in our bus drivers. It's very intensive when we try to train them for new technologies, and they have to be simple, they have to be agreeable with them. Parking the bus exactly lined up after you've just come out of a curve in the street can be difficult. When we implement things in the public sphere, we have to run certain projects to get all the citizens on board that live in the area, and this is a very involved process in Germany. And I think the city of Germany, Hamburg as well, wasn't so keen on having lots of large infrastructure put up. So quite often we get the question why we don't do trolley buses. Essentially that got voted out because it becomes incredibly difficult to imagine putting this type of infrastructure into an existing city that doesn't have it. So that kind of left us with the agreeableness of the Rampini plug-in charging, and that we saw the battery technology was getting better and better. We still hope to increase in its efficiency. The batteries in the electric buses still haven't quite reached the Tesla standard yet, so there's room for improvement. So we're betting a little bit on improved technology. In looking at these various factors, decided even though the complexity would make it more difficult with a plug-in bus because of the limited range, we could offset that by becoming more digital and giving ourselves smart systems that would help us counteract that.
Thank you. And then we have a follow question from our followers. Are your electric clean in Hamburg? Is it a fossil-free electric production?
Yeah. So we are procuring our electricity as part of the city of Hamburg, and the city of Hamburg has tendered their electricity to green electricity. Now we
green electric. I lost your voice there. But...
Oh, sorry about that. So we are part of the electricity procurement for the city of Hamburg, and they tendered their energy to be green energy.
Good.
So I think it's predominantly hydropower. You'd have to look at the tender details, but that is, for all intents and purposes, the type of green energy where part of it are also bought in strange transactions. That's a bit of a mystery to me, how it actually works. We also are located in our main depot, right next to 5 very, very large wind turbines in Hamburg. So currently we're looking at the possibilities of directly connecting ourselves to this large wind energy source, but also wondering how this would work. So we've installed a battery container of second life batteries from automobiles, and we'll be trying if that is a version of storing energy that we can implement somehow by using the wind energy, storing it in the battery container, and then later on when the buses actually are back and needing the energy, we'll actually be using it. This is also for the R&D stage. It's not, the battery container is not enough for powering all our buses when they want to be recharging at night, but we're trying it out if it's a way of reusing all the batteries, which in about 8 years we'll probably end up having quite a lot of, and reusing them, and then making a sensible setup where we have a storage system like that. Energy market is very regulated, and directly connecting our depot to the wind turbines is quite difficult, simply for the regulations involved in grid and grid stability and these kind of things. So we're working together with the HRB closely there, and they're looking into these things for us as well to analyze how that can possibly be done.
But that's extremely interesting, and I think if you're a researcher, this electric bus area, it gives you plenty of possibilities to continue your research, doesn't it? Roger, concerning the technology, when were you certain which one to choose? And have you been thinking about this clean energy question? You talked about it a little bit earlier, but also the vehicle to grid solutions. But starting off with the technology choices that you made.
Yeah, we have tested both depot charging and upcharging in the end station. Like about these 60 buses, they were in Gothenburg, they were upcharging at the end station, and the others were depot charging. We have tested both, and but when we procured the service in last year, then we left it to the operators to decide. We showed that upcharging some places would be good for charging stations, but we also think it's very important for us to have a depot. I mean, we are an authority, so we don't do the operation ourselves, but for electric buses, we think it's very crucial to have a depot in a strategic place. And of course, the depot, then you have to have the power and to see that it's only have it for charging overnight, but as a supplement to the upcharging. So we left it, but our experience is that for the first the stations in the city, the upcharge stations should be on our control. We should own it, not the operators, so that we have decided a strategic decision on that, and that is make it easier in the next tender. Our contract is 10 years, but these kind of equipment can be lasting for 15, 20 years. So we think that it will be a combination of upcharge and depot charging, and really it's already is the one that we have tendered now with the 160 buses. There will be depot charging overnight, but it will be charging in the end station as well. In all our operation, not only buses, but all our where we have electric, it is a green electricity, as we say. So we've had that for a long time, so that's not an issue. And most of the electricity in Sweden are green, but we buy green electricity. But just to finish this with the depots and such, I think that's one of our largest challenges are the depots, and we are very fortunate that we have in Gothenburg, and the Gothenburg area has good electricity. The power is enough for on the regional level for electrifying our city traffic, but of course it has to be also at the specific depot. So that is one of the most important things first, to make sure that there is electricity enough in the region and then to the depot.
But you actually have had to change your business model, kind of, to own the depots instead of long-term arrangements.
Yeah, this has been actually a long-term transition, you can say, that we already for 10 years saw that depots were strategic, especially in Gothenburg. Should also say that we have in most of our city traffic day, before the electrification, we had biogas, and biogas is also not so easy. The depot cannot be anywhere. It's not as hard as with electric, but anyway. So we have been gradually moving to that we have to have control, either owning or having renting depots. So we put that in the tender package. We show that this is a depot that you can use. And with electric, we see that it's very important that it has to be strategic, so it's not too far away from the service. So that's very important, and that is something that we talked about, that we should experiences also. Well, I should not say bad experience, but it's a struggle to find land, to find places that are in a good place for the service. There are so many other things that are important in the city with building the city and offices and so on. But we have good cooperation with the city, but it's also important that politicians and everybody understand that depots for electric buses is essential for developing a livable city.
Exactly. Is this a problem that you have experienced in Oslo, Marius? And how did you do your technical choices?
In some way, I think we have had some of the same experience as Roger and in Gothenburg. But I think the main learning is that for the technical side, I think there are enough available solution now. So it's more up to that the bus operators, which are essential here, needed to learn the technology, and they have done it now. And we have we have done electric public transport for 100 years, for trains, for trams, for subways. So that's so we have a lot of learning, but not the bus operators. So the learning has been all the knowledge about electrical large vehicle like trams has been in another part of the public transport system, and we have made the tram lines over the whole city. So compared to what we have already done for the subways and the trams, to do it for electrical buses should be easy. But of course, it's a learning process for the bus operators, which has done just diesel, and then the bus depots, as you said, Roger. But then, like in Oslo, it was okay. That was 1 year and a project, and then they have increased the electricity supply to the depot and installed the charging infrastructure there. I think the most for this last 3 years in Oslo, it has been most like for the PTAs to decide should we change the tender and the business model for the buses more towards what we do for the trams, or should we keep the business model for the bus part, where the bus operator is fixing everything? While for the tram, we have a separate part which do the electric lines, and so which is not on tender. And I think that has been one of the major struggles, that for the PTA to actually decide what model they should choose has been the most challenging, and also the planning time, not on the depot, but in the city for pantograph. If you're going to build a pantograph in the city, it takes longer time for the planning and authorities than a regular diesel bus tender. And that has been a learning that you need if you're going to use like pantograph as a part of the electrical bus. I think it's, as Roger said, I think we will see both. So I think it will not be one technical solution which fits everything. So I think we will see both, and then the PTAs need to start the planning process for the tender earlier. They need to do some earlier for the electrical infrastructure, so that they can have approvals to build the pantograph if the operators choose to do it. In Oslo, they had ended up with a model where the bus operator are responsible in the tender to do the full optimization and decide if they're going to have depot charging or pantograph charging, and then but then the PTA need to plan so that pantograph charging is an option. If they are not plan it will not be an option, and you are limited with the depot charging solutions.
All right. When we started to test electric buses in the city of Gothenburg, and they started to roll on this test or demo line, line 55, we experienced that before. For one example is that people actually skipped a bus just to wait for the electric one to come, because they liked being on the electric bus even more than on the old combustion engine ones. Maybe because it was new technology and new buses, and it was fresh and clean, or fresher and cleaner, or it was because you don't have the vibrations and the murmur. So I think that was one of my personal experiences that didn't really had counted on. Nina, in Hamburg, while testing and procuring, were there any other benefits that you couldn't foresee?
We have a similar thing with the bus drivers, actually, because they were, I think, very reserved. Is it obvious? Something new is always a bit suspicious, and they like their job and they like their diesel buses. And then when the electric buses actually started arriving, I think a lot of them were surprised how much they liked driving them, that they didn't actually listen to the diesel murmur in the background for 8 hours. So we've had that experience. We found out, because the little ring line on the Rampini, they're very silent buses. And it's a very special quarter they're running in. There's lots of steps that leads down the hill that end abruptly in the on the street. And so the bus drivers were very worried that they would run someone over who wouldn't hear the bus coming. So we installed what we call this the ice cream van bell. It's a little ding ding that the bus driver can engage when he thinks he would like to warn people, especially on sunny days when this gets lots of traffic, because the Elbe River beach is on the bottom of the hill, and so lots of people actually enjoy coming there and walking down, and they possibly don't know there's an electric vehicle going around like the locals do. Yeah. And it actually gives the bus driver a second voice, so you don't have either silence or an annoying honk going go away. You have a little friendly way of talking suddenly.
All right.
That's been added to the bus driver language with people surrounding him, which we think is actually a beneficial way, and we prefer it to the EU regulation that the bus actually has to always emit something to warn people, because we do still have drivers and they take their role very seriously, and they have the judgment to actually engage and use their new voice, and we think that's a good benefit.
Interesting. Roger, did you find any similar benefits?
Well, you talked about there with the passengers, and yes, it was as I said before, people really liked when we introduced electric buses, but also drivers, as you said, Nina. The drivers are very proud of driving the buses, and they are very satisfied, of course, with the noise. But I think also what we see when we have these surveys, that they are proud to be part of this transition to doing, to make the city more livable and for the climate. So it's there is a lot of these kind of positive, and I think maybe when we started this project and started with the electric, there was a lot of focus, of course, with the climate and emissions, but the noise is something that in a way we as a PTA didn't think so much about. Of course, it's good, but it's less noise. But it is. We find that it's very important for everybody, passengers, drivers, and everybody that lives in or visit the city. So that's very positive. I will also say another something that we didn't expect, or maybe didn't understand that it was so much. But we have now made a comparison between the emissions of the service we have now for these 160 buses and what it will be in this after December. And we have good buses now. There are Euro 5 and there are biogas or biodiesel, but it's dramatic changes. The carbon dioxide will decrease with 88%, the energy consumption with 67%, NOx with 97%, and add to that particles will almost be none, and the noise will silence. It's dramatic effects of electric buses that I don't think everybody understand how really fantastic good it is.
On all spectras, that it is both climate, it's environment, it's people's health in cities. Yeah. Could you tell us the CO2 reduction figure once again? Because I mean, biogas is also clean.
88% of now we have looked at the whole 160 buses. So there are some biodiesel and some biogas. This is in Mandal Pattulän.
88%.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Marius, any benefits that you didn't really count on when introducing? You said you actually went to Gothenburg and tested the buses, and then you realized how good they are. Because could you elaborate that a little bit? Why couldn't you just think about this as a good buses? Why did you have to experience it?
I think the seeing is believing is important for climate solution. When your neighbor has an electrical car, then it's spreading faster, and it's so for the electrical cars in Norway we have experienced that like the neighborhood or the seeing is believing is really now made the electrical car from being a small thing to be a regular thing which everyone is doing, and the same for electrical buses. That for the PTA and the bus operators and the politicians to actually see electrical bus and to drive it. So then we, after I've been in Gothenburg to see it ourselves, we brought a bus from Gothenburg to Oslo to show it here and drive a lot of politicians and in Norway around in a Volvo silent electric Volvo bus in Oslo, which we had borrowed from Gothenburg for 2 days. So and I think also the electrical city project in Gothenburg did a really good job for also communicating the benefits for electrical buses. Like they did a video with an acoustic concert on board on electrical bus to show how silent it is, and I think was really important. And as you said, both Nina and Roger, for the drivers, this has been the really positive experience, and also they have been good in communicating how much better it is not to drive a diesel or electrical bus compared to the noise from one full day of work in a diesel bus. I think other benefits, which has been the bus operators has gone from being skeptical. Why should they change? Diesel is working, and all this new electric. They knew diesel engines and diesel maintenance of that, but electrical motors they didn't know. They have through these last 3 years they have gone from being skeptical to be really proud being a part of the transition and really forward leading. And now most of them are argue for like, let's just do full scale, not just the new tender which is out now in the southern part of Oslo. Several of the bus operators are like, just go set them on for zero emission from the beginning of the tender. We are ready. We will do this full scale operations now.
So Marius, which city do you think will be the first one to totally abandon diesel among Oslo, Copenhagen? Oslo, Gothenburg, and Hamburg.
Oh, it's a hard competition, and that's really good. I think now the competition is really on, and between the cities in how for the transformation. In Oslo, it will be in the Oslo region. It will be within 2028, and the PTA has a strategy. 2028, and then the main challenge is all the regional buses, which has been hanging behind from the bus suppliers. They haven't prioritized that before. So then we had some large tender a couple of years ago, which was then the electrical buses was not available. But for this city buses, Oslo can be diesel free within 3 years, but that depends on the sometimes the outcomes from the tenders and that the PTA will have zero emission demands for the next tender, which will be in next year. So it's not quite clear, but we work hard to have the diesel buses out from the city of Oslo within 3 years. So,
well, the race is on then.
Yeah.
I'll turn to you, Nina. Which city do you think will be the first one? And I also will give you the opportunity for 30 seconds best advice to our listeners.
Okay. I agree with Marius. The problem is certainly for us as a company is that the surrounding municipalities aren't as quick in the uptake as the larger cities are. And we certainly think that for the city of Hamburg, we're aiming at 2030 as well. So I think Oslo might beat us by 2 years there. But as a company, we need the Green Vehicle Directive from the EU to actually move forward with the more rural areas to join up as well. And I would like to say that coming also back to your synergies, I think we see a change in the mindset of what public transport is to be for people. For a very long time, it was always optimizing what you already had, getting the last drop out of the diesel technology and becoming cheaper and therefore being viewed as something cheap. And now the bus drivers are proud to be driving green buses, and people wait for taking a green bus rather than get on the old diesel bus. And I think the change in mindset has been politically influenced and has also, it sort of goes around, whatever comes around goes around. It has more appreciation, and that makes politics appreciated more. And I think in our company, we also see the synergy in working more closely with the energy suppliers and the energy industry, really. So now when we kit out our depots for the green buses, we look for opportunities to also save energy elsewhere or install solar panels or make everything we do now more energy efficient. And I hope for everyone that they can do this. My advice would be look at where you want to be in the end, so that when you start out your planning, you don't make large errors because they can become expensive. And when you have your roadmap lined out, then be bold and try it.
Be bold. Roger, 30 seconds. The race is on. When will Gothenburg have electric buses totally?
Well, for the first, I think it's maybe not so important who is coming first, but that we learn from each other and inspire each other to reach our goals and to electrify the buses and the fleet. Our goal is, as I said, all city traffic will be. Our plan is by 2027. Gothenburg is earlier because how it is with the tendering. So that's by the end of 2023. But the regional buses will not be electrical. Maybe some we can learn from Oslo, but we also have a very political goal and strategy to have a lot of biogas. So we will have a biogas in regional, moving them from city traffic to regional. So, but I think if you look at advice and such, I think.
I'm afraid, yeah.
What?
Yeah,
I think it's very good important to see that this is a large transition, and as you said in the beginning, and that we need to cooperate. We need all stakeholders have to cooperate. Much different than when we attended the service.
Collaboration. It's contexts depending. We see differences between these cities, both because of size, but also because of context. You said, Marius, seeing is believing. So visit each other when you can, or try out, borrow buses. I think that was a brilliant way of believing that this is good technology. The benefits are huge. They are there. Just grab them. It gives you proudness, both to the citizens, but also to drivers and the companies. Thank you so much for sharing your information with us, for inspiring. The race is on. We know that Tartu and other cities are keeping up and following. So thank you very much for this panel. We get back at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank you so much, panelists, and have a really, really nice midsummer weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.